At the end of the Victorian era, mass migration to the New World, United States of America became an increasingly popular concept, with people from all over the world seeking riches and a new way of life, escaping the poverty and tribulations of everyday struggles. This trend carried on into the Edwardian era. With more and more passengers came the idea of bigger and faster ships. Multiple transatlantic companies were fighting for supremacy of the waves. Companies, such as the White Star Line, who had a fleet of ships known as the Big Four, which would run a regular service between Southampton and New York, taking 6 to 7 days to cross the North Atlantic at 19 knots, depending on the weather. A rival company, Cunard, would seek to pull at the seams of their competition, deciding to try and go one better. They would devise a plan to create quality over quantity, speed and luxury over cramped conditions and slow speeds. A plan was devised, and the drawings of a 4-funneled steamer was created by Leonard Pesquet, the Lusitania class. The plan would be to have 2 ships, with a sleek look, enter service with the top speed of the vessel to beat any competition across the sea. To obtain funds for the construction costs, Cunard would seek aid from the British Royal Admiralty. The Admiralty agreed to help pay towards construction of the vessels, under one condition. The ships would need to be made to military standard and be able to be called upon in times of war. With the funds given, Cunard would seek 2 shipbuilding firms to construct the vessels. One RMS Lusitania, namesake of the class and named after the Roman province in Western Europe corresponding to modern Portugal, would be given to John Brown and Company of Scotland, and the other RMS Mauretania was given to Wigham Richardson and Swan Hunter of Wallsend, Tyne and Ware, England. The reason for 2 shipbuilders was to allow the ships to be built simultaneously and to avoid or limit any attempts at espionage. Lusitania's keel would be laid down the 17th of August 1904 and Mauretania's the 18th of August 1904. For 2 years construction would be carried out at the 2 shipyards on both vessels. On the 7th of June 1906 Lusitania would be launched to an overwhelming fanfare. Mauretania would follow suit the 20th of September 1906. On the 7th of September 1907 Lusitania would leave Liverpool bound for New York on her maiden voyage across with Mauretania, following a month later, the 16th of November 1907. Out of the 2 mighty vessels, Mauretania would wear the crown of the largest ship in the world by a slight margin as opposed to her sister, coming in at 31,938 gross registered tons as opposed to Lusitania being 31,550 gross registered tons. Both ships were fitted with steam turbines producing 76,000 horsepower and 4 triple-blade propellers giving them a top speed of 25 knots.
With the creation of Lusitania and Mauretania, rival operators sought to counter the competition. Inciting a meeting to be held with J. Bruce's May, chairman of the White Star Line, and Lord William Pirrie of Harland and Wolff in Belfast, a shipbuilder, whom had exclusive rights to build the ships that made up the fleet of the White Star Line. The meeting, over dinner, would discuss how to match and surpass the new flagships of Cunard lines. There, Lord Pirrie would complete a sketch of a 3-funneled steamer. This sketch would later be altered, adding a 4th funnel for ventilation. With 4 funnels, the ship would look grander than her competitors. This sketch would later receive the title of the Olympic class. The Olympic class would be made up of 3 ships. Olympic, being the first and namesake of the class, named after the home of the Greek gods Mount Olympus, and Titanic, named after the foes of the Greek gods, the Titans. As for the 3rd ship, it was believed that this ship would be called Gigantic. This name, however, would later be changed. In 1908, Lusitania would go on to win the Blue Ribbon. This was awarded to the fastest crossing from one side of the North Atlantic to the other, going in both directions, taking only 4 days, 19 hours, and 53 minutes to arrive into port. An amazing feat to be sure. However, this was a short-lived victory. As her sister Mauretania, in September 1909, Mauretania captured the Blue Ribbon for the fastest westbound crossing, a record that was to stand for more than 2 decades. Both vessels would capture the attention of the wealthy elites and the general populace. Other companies struggled to keep up with the size and speed of the vessels, forcing White Star Line to create their own 4-funneled steamers to keep up with the competition. The years following would be relatively kind for both vessels. In 1909 the Lusitania would receive and upgrade All 4 original 3-bladed propellers would be replaced with larger 4-bladed propellers to allow for extra speed and efficiency. On the 20th of October, 1910 in Belfast at Harland and Wolff, a large crowd of spectators witnessed the launch of the biggest ship in the world. Freshly launched, Olympic would be ready for the fitting out process. On June 14 the following year, Olympic would be granted a roaring fanfare as she set to the seas from Southampton on her maiden voyage to New York. Meanwhile, Cunard decided that with launch of the Olympic-class liners they would potentially fall behind their competitors, leaving them with one option. They again turned to naval architect Leonard Pesquet to design a third ship to accompany Lusitania and Mauretania across the Atlantic Ocean. Pesquet would design a ship which would be somewhat of a hybrid of the Lusitania class with elements of the latest and grandest ship to set sail, the Olympic. The design would later become a class, all on its own, the Aquitania class. John Brown and Company in Clydebank, Scotland would take on the task of building Aquitania